Sometimes the most powerful solutions to the world's biggest problems, they aren't some complex machine or a super expensive new drug. Nope, they're deceptively simple. Today, we are going to unpack one of the greatest public health inventions of the 20th century, this small, unassuming packet of powder that has saved millions and millions of lives. So to really get why this packet is such a game changer, you have to understand the scale of the crisis it was built to solve. The World Health Organization is really clear about this. Diarrheal diseases are a top killer of young children. But here's the thing. The real killer isn't the illness itself. It's something much simpler: dehydration.
And that right there, that's the villain of our story. When the body loses way too much water and these essential salts, electrolytes, its systems just start to shut down. It's a really simple biological process, but it's an absolutely deadly one.
So, how do you fight a global killer this massive? Not with some high-tech lab or a billion-dollar investment. You fight it with this: a simple, revolutionary packet. This is it, oral rehydration salts, or ORS for short. It's just a perfectly balanced mix of glucose and electrolytes. And what's so cool is that scientists have been tinkering with it for decades, constantly improving the formula to make it even more effective. Okay, I know this chart looks a little intense, but the breakthrough is actually super simple. Scientists figured out that less is more. The new formula, that's the one on the right, the low osmolarity one, it actually has less sodium and glucose. Now that sounds kind of backwards, right? But that little tweak made the solution get absorbed by the body way more efficiently.
And the impact of this new formula? It was staggering. The WHO reported that it led to a 33% drop in the need for IV drips in kids. It also cut down on stool output by about 20% and vomiting by 30%. We're not talking about small tweaks here. These were massive leaps forward.
Right, so we know the new formula is way better. But how? How does a simple mix of sugar and salt perform this kind of medical magic? Well, to get that, we need to look at the elegant science of rehydration.
So what's the actual recipe for this little lifesaver? Turns out it's a super precise mix of just 4 key ingredients, and each one has a really critical job to do. It's honestly so simple, it's brilliant. You've got glucose for energy, and then 2 common salts, sodium chloride and potassium chloride, to replace what the body's lost. But it's that last ingredient, trisodium citrate, that's just so clever. It's in there to fix the body's entire acid-base balance, which can go completely haywire during severe dehydration. And when you break it down by weight, you can see one ingredient just dominates the whole thing. Almost 2/3 of the packet is glucose. But here's the kicker. That sugar isn't just there for a quick energy boost. It is the secret key that unlocks the entire rehydration process.
So here's how it works. Our bodies have this amazing built-in system called the sodium-glucose co-transport system. Basically, glucose acts like a buddy. It grabs onto sodium and pulls it from the intestine right into the bloodstream. And here's the magic part. Wherever sodium goes, water has to follow. So the simple presence of that sugar massively speeds up the absorption of both salt and water, rehydrating the body way more effectively than just drinking water alone.
Okay, so the science is super elegant, right? But turning that elegant formula into millions upon millions of identical life-saving packets? Well, that's a whole other challenge. This is where science becomes a blueprint for a lifesaver. It might just look like a simple packet of powder, but the WHO is really clear that ORS is a medicine, and that means creating it requires a process that is anything but simple. It has to follow strict pharmaceutical good manufacturing practices.
The production line is just a masterpiece of precision. First, all the raw materials are dried. Then they're sifted, making sure every single particle is the exact same size so the final mixture is perfectly uniform. Only then do they get to the super careful weighing, blending, and sealing. Every single step is designed to guarantee that the final product is absolutely flawless.
And I want to pause on this quote for a second. This is straight from the WHO and UNICEF production manual. They don't just say it's an important step, they call it the single most important step. Because if you get the weights wrong, that carefully balanced solution could be totally ineffective or even harmful. And this obsession with precision, it just runs through the entire process. The source manual goes into detail about constant quality control checks. We're talking everything from controlling the humidity of the air inside the factory to literally putting finished packets in a vacuum chamber to test the seals from microscopic leaks.
So we've got an elegant, scientific formula and a super precise manufacturing process. But the story gets even bigger when we zoom out and ask why.
Why does this little packet matter so much on a global scale?
So this slide lays out a huge strategic choice for any country's health ministry. Do you import ORS or do you invest in making it yourself locally? It's not just a numbers game. It's a fundamental decision about national capability and self-reliance.
And the power of producing ORS locally is just immense. Self-reliance means a country can respond to a disease outbreak immediately without having to wait for international shipments. You can adapt the packet dose to match the size of the most common cup or bottle that people actually have in their homes. And maybe most important of all, you can print clear instructions with illustrations in local languages. That one factor is so crucial for making sure this life-saving solution is mixed and used correctly. And that's when it all clicks. This was never just about a packet of salt and sugar. It represents national pride, technical capability, and a country's fundamental commitment to care for its own people. It becomes a symbol of a health system that's strong and self-sufficient.
And that's the story of the ORS packet, a simple solution born from elegant science, made with incredible precision and scaled up to become a cornerstone of global health. It really leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What other simple solutions are out there, just waiting for us to unpack them?